If you think Billy Napier doesn't need to hire an OC, or if you think Florida is genuinely in the national title conversation, go ahead and click the X. No hard feelings, because Big Dog, this episode, not for you.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. Happy Wednesday. I'm Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI. I am planning on going live tonight after the Florida Gators basketball game, so could be a late one, but could be a day where we get multiple Locked On Gators episodes. Love those. They play tonight at 7, so probably going live around 9-ish, 9:30-ish, depending on how the game goes. But we spent some time yesterday in Q's Twitter space, which I know if you're not in the Twitter spaces, you don't know who Q is. But if you are, you know who Q is. We spent some time in his Twitter space yesterday talking about Ohio State and Florida and what they could do. And so I wanted to elaborate on some things with my opinion about them, right? And we're going to start with the roster, okay? And I will say this, and this isn't all negative. When I said, if you think Billy doesn't need an OC, or if you think that they're in the title conversation, go ahead and click skip, X, whatever. I get it. It's not all negative, though. Like right now, I'm talking about the roster. I have been saying for quite some time that I think what Billy Napier and this coaching staff, this front office, what they've done as far as building a roster, I think they've done a really good job of it, right? You've got your 5-star quarterback. You've got blue chips basically at every position except the offensive line they really haven't been able to do. But you've got blue chips throughout. You've got a lot of talent on this roster. And like I've said, I do think that talent-wise, you're looking at a college football playoff roster. Okay? Maybe not a national championship caliber roster, but a college football playoff roster. And I do think that Florida and Ohio State, who won the national championship on Monday night, I do think that when you look at their building process, a lot of it kind of similar, right? You look at, and we talk about, all the time here, about how building a college team is more like building an NFL team than it's ever been like. And I liken this all the time to building a college team through high school recruiting is similar to building an NFL team through the draft, which, again, the main way or the best way to build a team, in my opinion, and in the opinion of, I think, many, is build through the draft, build your foundation, build your significant contributors through the draft. And in college, build it through high school recruiting. Then you use the transfer portal, also known as free agency in the NFL, and basically known as free agency in college at this point, is you go through free agency to fill in any gaps you may have in your roster. Or if you've got a roster that generally through the draft has been built, or high school recruiting has been built to be competitive and to make a run, then you go through free agency to put you over the top, right? That's the plan. You use free agency to put yourself over the top, whether that's going and getting the quarterback, the running back, the cornerback. I don't care. It doesn't need to be premium positions. It's just filling the gaps in your roster. And for Florida, I think that they've done a generally good job of building the team. But I think the big difference is that Ohio State, and before we even talk about the actual roster building process, I couldn't give less of a damn when people go, well, Ohio State had a $20 million roster. Of course they're going to do this, because guess what? You know who else had very expensive rosters? Texas, Oregon, those teams that people talked about a lot, Georgia. They also had really expensive rosters, and they didn't win the national championship, right? So it's not strictly who spent a lot of money. There's layers to this, of course. So it's not strictly who spent a lot of money. So I don't want to hear Ohio State has a $20 million roster, because also spending a lot of money. Miami didn't even make the college football playoff. And that's not even to take a dig at Miami. I like being able to say it, but it's not even taking a dig at Miami. It's just being honest about it. So I don't want to hear they spent a lot on a roster. Because, and what Florida did really well was retain talent, which is what Ohio State did as well. They had Jack Sawyer could have gone, didn't, came back. JT, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, could have gone to the NFL, came back. And it was a surprise when he came back as well. But, so I don't want to hear Ohio State has a $20 million roster or anything like that. Because what they did is that they used high school recruiting to bring in a lot of guys that they could develop for multiple years. And then they used NIL to retain that talent, which Florida did. You look at Caleb Banks, you look at Tyreek Sapp, you look at Austin Barber, you look at Jake Slaughter. Florida went and they got their guys to stay with the Florida Gators. So they did that well. And they did that similar to Ohio State. Florida just building most of their roster through high school recruiting. They did that well. And Ohio State did that well as well. So you're on par there. But to me, the big differentiator is that Ohio State looked at the transfer portal. They looked at free agency and they said, we need to go get needle movers. And I don't think Florida did that. I think Florida used the transfer portal to get one guy that I view as a starter quality player, and that's J. Michael Sturdivant at wide receiver. And then they brought in depth pieces, rotational players, which, sure, you added what you needed, right? Or what you felt you needed. But you didn't add needle movers. And I think that was a big differentiator with Ohio State. They both retained key talent, but Ohio State went out and got needle movers. Ohio State went out and just got talent. And we hear all the time about this is a talent acquisition business. And the reason that Florida Gators fans especially get to say this is a talent acquisition business is because that's what our head coach Billy Napier said when he got here. He said this is a talent acquisition business. And what that means is you go get as much talent as you can and you figure out the rest of the bullcrap later. Right? What did Ohio State do? They went and got Will Howard, who, by the way, was not – like, Will Howard was not the guy where everybody was like, oh, he's going to win him a national championship. In fact, when they got him, they went, oh, don't know about that. Don't know how they're going to do that. Don't like that. A bunch of people said no. They went and they got Quinshon Judkins from Ole Miss. They already had Travion Henderson, who was going to be a top 70 pick in the NFL draft, I'll say. So going to be a top 70 pick, most likely. They went and got Quinshon Judkins, another guy who's likely going to be a top 70 pick. As far as retaining talent, Emeka Egbuka is a big one. Jack Sawyer is a big one. JT, again, I can't pronounce his last name, is a big one. And I'd rather just not say your last name instead of screwing it up. But the edge rusher, JT. And then they went in the transfer portal. They got Caleb Downs at safety. Elite football player. We talked about him. Once Nick Saban retired, I went on the show and I said, hey, go get Caleb. Like I went on the show and I said, hey, go get Caleb Downs. Go get him. And Caden Proctor. Go get them. Obviously, didn't get either. But that's what I said to go do. They went and just got the best talent they could. Because you get the best talent you can and you figure it out later. And so they went and got all those players, needle movers, okay? People may not have liked Will Howard, but he was a needle mover. I liked him at Kent State, but hey, that's not me, right? So some people didn't like him. Some did. But they went and they got needle movers. And then they went and got, or maybe before that, but they got the biggest needle mover of them all in Chip Kelly. We'll talk about that next on Locked On Gators. This message is brought to you by Prize Picks, the place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions in winnings. Prize Picks has changed the game in daily fantasy sports, whether it's the playoffs or regular season. Prize Picks has made it easier than ever to win big while enjoying all of the football action. And now that it's playoff time, there's no better way to get in on the action than with Prize Picks, right? It's great teams, productive players, easy money. Here's how it works. You simply pick more or less on at least 2 players. And if your picks hit, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. I did not misspeak. up to 1,000 times your money just by making a few simple picks. If you're ready to run your game this football season, download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup, whether you win or lose. $5 lineup, $50 instantly with code LOCKEDONCollege. Don't wait. Take your game to the next level with Prize Picks. Prize Picks, run your game. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free reviews in the podcast and on YouTube. And like I said, Florida or Ohio State went out and they used a transfer portal to go get needle movers. I've said I don't think Florida did that this year. I think they went and got depth, and that's fine, but that's not playoff. That's not championship movement, okay? One big thing that I said Ohio State did to get a needle mover was to go get Chip Kelly, who is the head coach at UCLA. But I will say this, he was looking for a way out to begin with from UCLA. Things were not going well there. I mean, you don't get a ton of support at UCLA from the fan base, from the administration. They don't give you the tools needed to play winning football, right? And so Chip Kelly essentially went, you know what? I'm not going to go down with the ship. I'm going to leave. And I'm going to go be an OC where I don't have to worry about as much of the NIL team building process. And I can just be me. Because that's what Chip Kelly does, right? Like Chip Kelly throughout his entire career has been known as just get talented players, skill position players, go make some stuff happen. Ryan Day at Ohio State had made the national championship twice, made the college football playoff multiple times, but never won the big one. Then he goes out and he hires Chip Kelly. And also, by the way, I'm not a Ryan Day fan. I just want to make that one clear. But he went out and he hired Chip Kelly. And in the first year with Ryan Day and Chip Kelly together in Ohio State, won a national championship. And I say this not to say that Florida needs to go and get a incredible offensive guru. I'm not saying that you need to go and get this guy that's a head coach right now that you can just add to your team as an OC like it's nothing. I'm not saying that. I think that Chip Kelly specifically was a very unique situation, right? So I'm not saying you need to do that. I'm not saying you need to go out and hire a Chip Kelly caliber offensive coordinator because that's never been what I've been saying, right? I don't think you need a guy that's going to come in and reinvent the wheel. I don't think you need a guy that's going to come in and completely reinvent the offense, right? Like with Brennan Marion, I understand everybody was talking about the go-go and everybody was talking about, I don't want to bring someone in that's going to do that gimmicky stuff, which is not, it's really, and I mean this wholeheartedly. Don't call the go-go a gimmicky offense because it's really not, okay? It's really not, if you know the intricacies of things, it's really not a gimmicky offense, okay? But what you would have been able to do if you brought in Brennan Marion is say, hey, here's the playbook. You can add some go-go to it. You can add some go-go stuff to it. And now we have our offense with a different play caller plus the go-go. And Brennan Marion at Sacramento State, going to move mountains, I think. But I'm not saying you need a innovator like that to that level, okay? I think that you just need a guy that can come in, handle offensive play calling duties, and let Billy Napier handle being a head coach. That's it. Again, if you have Billy Napier focusing on being a head coach, you probably don't come out flat as hell against Miami. You probably don't come out flat as hell against Texas A&M. Okay? Those two games alone, I'm not saying you'd win them, but you'd at least give yourself a better chance if you don't come out flat. All right, especially because both those teams ended up having very good seasons. So I'm not saying that you go and win them if you don't come out flat, but you definitely don't get blown out 41-17 and 33-20, which the score looks better than the game really was because Texas A&M didn't throw the ball for the final 27 minutes of the game. So I'm not saying that you go out and win those games, but I'm saying you give yourself a better chance. If you have a different play caller, you probably beat Tennessee because I'll tell you, and we spoke about this immediately after the game, it felt like Billy Napier did everything he possibly could to lose that Tennessee game. That was a coaching disaster class. And you still took a college football playoff team to overtime. in the game where your starting quarterback tore his ACL and did not finish the rest of the season. I don't need a needle mover in the sense of this incredible, innovative mind as offensive coordinator. I need an offensive coordinator, not because Billy is terrible at everything he does and not because he's just awful at everything he does, but because I think that it would allow him to do what Ryan Day did this year, which is just be a head coach. Get your guys ready. Put more effort into helping both of your coordinators game plan. Put more effort into, if your position coaches need a little assistance for a specific thing, helping that. I need you to just be a head coach. And I think the number is like an offensive play calling head coach hasn't won a natty since like 2012 or 2013, something around that, since Jimbo, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a long time since then, right? So I'm not saying that I need an offensive coordinator because I hate Billy. I'm not saying I need an offensive coordinator because Billy's horrible. I don't think he's good, but I'm saying I need an offensive coordinator so that we have, one, bit of a better feel for play calling, but two, so that Billy could just be a head coach. That's it. Like, look at the college football playoff teams that you had this year and look at which of them had offensive play calling head coaches, and you'll realize not a lot of success there. And defensive play calling head coaches. I don't want to make it like I'm just saying one side. Just not play calling so that they could focus on being a head coach, especially now where as a head coach, you have more on your plate than ever before. So that's why like I haven't even been clamoring for. I've seen Florida Gators fans, Cliff Kingsbury. We've seen Garrett Riley. We've seen a billion names thrown out there. Who are the guys that I've clamored for as an offensive coordinator? Brennan Marion was one. Willie Korn is one that I've mentioned a lot. Jake Peets has been and will continue to be a guy that I bring up and I say, hey, he might be my number one option. Like Jake Peets is a coach that I'm just a big fan of in general. Jake Peets. Shea Tierney is a name that I mentioned last year. Giants quarterback coach. Has been under Brian Daboll, who I don't care what you say about Brian Daboll as a head coach. He's been a pretty good offensive mind for years, helped Josh Allen become who Josh Allen is. Shea Tierney was there for all that. So the same credit we give to Will Harris for what he did under Jimmy Lake is the same credit I'd like to say. They're not maybe credit, but the same. He coached under Jimmy Lake at the absolute worst, who's great. I'd say that for Shea Tierney because, again, regardless of how the Giants' record has gone, I still think that Brian Daboll's had an offense that he could at least schematically respect. Their quarterback play has been the worst thing I've ever seen, like worse than high school. And high school in New York City is not pretty, I'll tell you that. But Jake Peets has been a name that I continue to say. Like, it's not that I think Florida needs this incredible offensive coordinator that's going to change everything. I just need a guy that can come in and call the offense. I'm fine if you keep the offensive system the same for 98% of it, but just different play calling. That's what I'd like to see. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. I'm trying to win a national championship. That's what I want, right? That's all I want. And so for me, I look at offensive coordinator and I look at Ryan Day and I say, hey, you have a guy that was calling plays and finding success. That's the thing too. Ryan Day, the offense at Ohio State was always productive. They were winning he won less than 10 games one time in his head coaching career. And do you know when that was? 2020 COVID year where they only played 8 games. The only time he won less than 10 games was a year they didn't even play 10 games. That's it. So this is, I don't need you to reinvent the wheel. I don't need you to do anything incredibly drastic. I don't need a scheme change. I just want our head coach to be able to be a head coach. That's it. That's all I'm talking about. That's the biggest needle mover. Let your head coach be a head coach and let your coordinator be a coordinator. That's it. Maximize your window. Capitalize on your window right now. The Florida Gators, I've also been very critical of their coaching staff and coaching staff decisions in the past couple of days and weeks. We'll talk about that next on Locked On Gators. Therapy is a game changer, and I have always said that I think everybody could use therapy. It can help manage stress, improve sleep, and communicate more effectively. But finding the right therapist and fitting sessions into a busy schedule can be a challenge, and that's where Talkspace comes in. Talkspace is the leading virtual therapy provider, and it makes getting the help you need easy, accessible, and affordable. Anything better than that? I don't think so. As a listener of Locked On Gators, you'll get $80 off your first month with Talkspace when you go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnCollege and enter promo code SPACE80. To match with a licensed therapist today, go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnCollege and enter promo code SPACE80. That's SPACE80 to get $80 off your first month and show your support for Locked On Gators. That's Talkspace.com/LockedOnCollege using promo code SPACE80. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free wherever listen to the podcast and on YouTube. And I will say this for Talkspace. If you are a Florida Gators football fan or a college football fan and you follow recruiting, you need therapy. I'm just letting you know, you're a sick puppy. That's all I'm saying. But apart from the offensive coordinator, like I talked about, and like we're going to wrap up today's show talking about the coaching staff, apart from offensive coordinator, I'm not acknowledging that part because I'm not going to keep harping on the same thing. I have been bashed on social media, bashed in the comments section for criticizing Billy Napier's decisions with the coaching staff this offseason, right? And I don't think it's justified. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think I'm wrong here. I think I'm pretty right, actually. And I know I'm a bit of a cocky ass. I get it. But I think I'm right here. Billy Napier nailed the coaching hires last year, right? For Ron Roberts, people want him gone because of off-field things, not because of the defensive coaching, right? So nailed the hire on field. Will Harris, secondary coach, fantastic hire. Gerald Chapman, defensive line coach, fantastic hire. Jonathan DeCoster, offensive line coach. I've heard nothing but great things about Jonathan DeCoster, right? And we spoke last year, right after Jonathan DeCoster got hired. We had a quote from Cleveland Browns offensive tackle Jedrick Wills talking about how Jonathan DeCoster helped him develop and helped him adapt to the NFL game. And as a coach, nothing but high praise, right? He's listed as the primary recruiter for every offensive lineman that we see. Probably for a good reason. I think you absolutely nailed the hires last year. This offseason, Billy Napier had the opportunity to upgrade positions, do the same thing, right? And he didn't. Keeping Jabbar Jalouk, I think, was a fantastic decision. I will not criticize that. I know that there are people who don't like Jabbar Jalouk because he doesn't get 5-star running backs. I don't care. He gets running backs that come in, produce consistently. I have said before, and I don't mean to bash Billy Gonzalez, by the way. Like, I have nothing against Billy Gonzalez, but I think the Florida Gators right now are in their window. We call this the Lagway window, right? You're in the Lagway window. You've got these next 2 seasons to do it. That's it. I think now was the time where you should have gone out and you could have upgraded receiver. Someone in the comment section the other day said that Billy Gonzalez is the second best receiver coach on the planet behind only Brian Hartline. I don't know what you're on, but that's some good stuff is all I'm going to say, because in no world is Billy Gonzalez the best receiver coach on the planet or the second best receiver coach on the planet, okay? I want to make that abundantly clear. But as far as receiver, what development has there genuinely been at receiver in the past couple years? And don't forget, when Billy Gonzalez got hired by Billy Napier after Kerry Colbert went to the Broncos, I completely defended the hire when a lot of people didn't. I defended the hire because he had a great reputation and resume as a developer of talent. But we have not seen any of the high school recruits really take the steps that we've anticipated. Every year, it's been a guy that comes in for the portal and he's your best receiver. Last year, we had 2 guys come in from the portal, and both of them were your best receivers. I will not give you credit for developing Trey Wilson because we haven't seen any development from him. We haven't been able to see any development from him. He's used strictly as a gadget guy, which is not a knock on Trey, and I'm not knocking Billy Gonzalez for that. I'm saying that we don't have any proof of development there. 61 catches as a freshman, and 37 of them were behind the line of scrimmage. That's a really high percentage of your catches coming behind the line of scrimmage. That's a lot. I'm not going to give you credit for that. So I can't give you that one. I'm sorry. But I think you could have upgraded at Billy Gonzalez or receiver coach. I will say this. I'm not furious at it. I just think that it was a missed opportunity to upgrade. As long as you keep the assistants, Chad Lucas and David Decker, I'm cool with it. I'll accept it. I'm not going to say cool with it, but I'll accept it. So there's that. Edge coach. The rumor is that, or the rumor, On3 reported that Rob Sale and Mike Peterson are both going to sign extensions. I disagree with those both. I get it. Rob Sale's had 2 All-Americans. I understand that. I care more about the performance of the unit than I do about the individual. It's great to say All-Americans, right? Like that should really help your offensive line recruiting, which has been really bad. But I don't think the offensive line has been amazing either way. For the first half of the season in 2024, couldn't run the ball effectively. That was a constant thing that kept just biting them in the, you know what. They couldn't run the ball effectively because teams could just line it up, blitz the hell out of you and win. So that wasn't working. And when DJ Lagway came in, it's not like the offensive line got drastically better. It's that DJ Lagway was capable of extending plays, similar to Anthony Richardson in 2022, right? He was really good at extending plays, evading sacks, and it made the offensive line look good. But pressures were still an issue. It's just that sacks weren't, which is why 2023 with Graham Mertz, everybody thought the offensive line was so much worse. The fact is the offensive line hasn't been elite at all. It's that in 2022 and 2024, you had QBs that could evade pressures and extend plays and avoid sacks. In 2023, you didn't. And so in 2023, you saw quarterback get sacked a lot, and you went, oh, that's really bad. That's a quarterback play, not offensive line play. Like that's the difference. Their offensive line has improved, but hasn't been great at all. So there's that. I thought you should have upgraded from Rob Sale. I thought that Jonathan Koster was going to get the head O-line coach title, or maybe you'd go externally and get someone to replace Rob Sale. Didn't happen. Had an opportunity to upgrade there, and you didn't. And I'm disappointed there. Edge with Mike Peterson, I've been very open about this. I don't think the edge room has been awesome. I don't. George Gums wins with hustle, effort, not pure technique and skill. Right? Who was your best pass rusher on the defense last year? Because it was a guy that works at the interior defensive line that works with Gerald Chapman. Because it was Caleb Banks. Okay? A lot of the offense, or a lot of the defensive pass rush was driven through Caleb Banks. I think you could have upgraded at the edge room. We've seen a lot of edge rushers not develop, and we've seen edge rushers leave here and be productive. Right? Princely left, had a better year. And I get it. People don't like talking about Princely. People hate Princely. That's fine. I don't care. Princely left, had a more productive year with Ole Miss. Antoine Powell-Ryland left partly because of Mike Peterson. Antoine Powell-Ryland left, had great years with Virginia Tech. TJ Searcy never developed as a pass rusher. Jack Piber never developed as a pass rusher. The most productive edge rusher that came in was George Gums, and he came in with less than a year to develop with Mike P. You think that was Mike P., or you think that was what he learned at Northern Illinois, what he did individually, and then he came in and just played well? Tyreek Sapp took strides. I know that he went to personal development. Tyreek Sapp took strides. Yeah, sure. I don't think that was all Mike P. I'll say that much about it. And again, this isn't to knock Mike P. I don't think he's a good edge coach. I would try my linebacker coach, but I don't think he's a good edge coach. So I think that Florida had the opportunity to upgrade. And I don't think right now you have a national championship winning staff. I think you've got national championship winning coaches at some positions, but I don't think it's staff overall. And you could have upgraded there, and you didn't. And that frustrates the hell out of me. I will say that. So it's not that this was an impossible thing to replicate with Ohio State. It was possible. You had some opportunities to upgrade, and you didn't. And that's why I've been so hard on Billy Napier, and that's why I'll continue to be so hard on Billy Napier, because I think that right now you've got the Lagway window, and I think that you could have made some moves to raise your ceiling and your floor in 2025, and you didn't, and I get frustrated as hell about that. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. We'll be back tomorrow to talk more Florida Gators football. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI, and I will see you all next time.